In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I am Brent Jackson.
So Brent, today we're doing a slightly different show. We are interviewing Louis Cardenas and Sandra Jackson. So Louis Cardenas is an agent with our company here at TTR Sotheby's in Washington, D.C. And when we asked Lou to come on the show, he graciously and selflessly suggested that instead of our usual interview, we interview and highlight the great work of Sandra Jackson in her leadership with the House of Ruth, which is one of DC's most impactful domestic shelters. And Lou is also on the board of directors with the House of Ruth, hence the connection. So Lou and Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here today and talk about two of my passions, which are real estate and the great work of House of Ruth, and how they're connected. House of Ruth's motto, as you guys may have seen or the logo, is "Hope starts here," and I feel like that really says it all. The way this happens is by House of Ruth empowering women, children, and families to rebuild their lives. Families that are experiencing and folks that are experiencing homelessness and domestic traumas and violence. And this is right within our own community. And, as you guys and I, we're all in real estate, right? So we're in the business of providing people safe homes to live in. And unfortunately, not everybody has a home or can afford a home, the type of homes that we sell. And so, I've always had this this value of sort of giving back to a community that's given me so much. And that was instilled in me originally by my mom. I'm a first generation American. My parents immigrated here, and this country was really, really good to my family. And with that comes an obligation and a desire to give back. And I always remember my mom volunteering and taking me to volunteer projects with her and giving up her time. And so I, for a while now, have been involved in nonprofit boards. I was the head of another board that served children and young folks that were at risk in our community. And then about, back in 2016, an opportunity was presented to me to join the House of Ruth board. And House of Ruth had always been on my radar because it was founded by a Georgetown University professor and an undergrad at Georgetown. I remember that was a project to volunteer, and I did that. And so I always knew about House of Ruth. I just hadn't been involved in a number of years. And then again, when this opportunity was presented, I sort of jumped all over it. And that was 7 years ago now, which is amazing how time flies. And somehow Sandra convinced me a couple of years ago to rise up to chair that board. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I know what that's like, Sandra. It's a lot of work. It's a big side hustle." But you know what? It's been seven, and then now two as chair of the best, most rewarding, most fulfilling years I've had in life in general. And I am inspired by Sandra every day. She's a big picture thinker, always thinking outside the box. It's like, what's the next bigger thing, Lou, that it sounds impossible that we can do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, let's do that, Sandra. And I give her tons of credit for that, working alongside her. So that's my role as board chair, is to, and because of I'm tying together this with real estate, because as board chair and as facilities director, because of my real estate background, because before residential, I did commercial, right? And I was involved in a company, a real estate investment trust that did multifamily, industrial, retail, all of that. And so I think my role or my expertise in real estate has been helpful because of one of our strategic plan goals, which we developed a few years ago, is to provide affordable housing in DC. And these are, we provide these safe shelters for women and families that are going through trauma, but also when our clients graduate from our programs, they come out and there's a lack of affordable housing for these folks. And so we decided a while ago that we were going to also embark on a plan or a goal of providing more affordable housing in the district. And we successfully bought our first building last year, and that was as a result of I was going to say we have several capital campaigns that we've embarked on, but we are raising money now for that property, and it's going to be a beautiful we're going to redevelop it into a beautiful multi-unit building, and using all the latest green technologies, green materials. It's a building that's going to be somewhere that any one of us would be happy to live in. That's another one of Sandra's objectives, is always to build something that's going to make an impact on the community in which it's where it's located, and that we want to do that. We want to transform communities. Another example of that, and I'm going to turn it over to Sandra in a minute because I'm talking a lot, I realize, but we just completed about 2 years ago now another incredibly beautiful building. It's called Kids Space, and it serves children that, again, are in vulnerable situations, homelessness and so forth. And it's a 17,000 square foot, $8 million building that is in east of the river on Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, and just beautiful, bright, modern, cheery. Any one of you would be happy to send your kids to this building, to this daycare. And it sits like a beacon of hope up on this hill, literally on a hill overlooking the city. And people drive by it at night and are just wowed by it. It's just a gorgeous, wonderful facility. And I'm so happy this happened in the last couple of years. We were able to achieve this. And then again, the next project is this redevelopment, and we're going to keep going. I know Sandra, and we're going to keep going and finding opportunities, meeting developers, looking at land, looking at buildings. We've done it all. We've kind of considered lots of different options. So with that, I want to turn it over to the lady that inspires me every day and talk a little bit. Unless you guys have any questions first, I'll turn it over to Sandra, who is our fearless leader of House of Ruth.
Well, we'll circle back to some of those things, but yes, Sandra, really pleased to meet you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started with House of Ruth?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm happy to be here, and so happy to talk about what I'm passionate about, as Lou said. I actually came to House of Ruth from a social work background. I'm a social worker by training and have been in the field for about 30 years. I've worked with families on the front line after grad school, and then, of course, worked my way up through the ranks to lead programs and lead organizations. So I came to House of Ruth in 2013 as the director of operations at that time, and shortly thereafter, there was a transition from the executive director, and I was asked to lead in an interim role, and I did that for about 6 months, and from there, as they would say, fate would have it, and I ended up in the role as executive director at that particular time. And my passion, as Lou talked about from his mom, has been from my mom. I saw my mom as one of those persons that was always giving and helping and supporting the community. And I say she was my first model of a social worker, although she didn't have that degree behind her name, but she was truly a social worker in every phase. In terms of the work that I saw her do. And I just knew that that was what I wanted to do. I knew that that was something I was being called to do. So it wasn't unusual for me to end up where I am and to be here to support women and children and families. And so I'm just happy to be able to live out my passion right here at House of Ruth.
It's amazing. There's not enough of this stuff going on, period. Like this, what you guys do is really something else. That's a lot of work. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So we're learning more about the House of Ruth, and the founder of House of Ruth was Georgetown University professor Veronica Maz. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Yeah. Well, some people pronounce it Maz, so we say Maz as well. Yeah.
And so Veronica Maz also helped start So Others Might Eat and Martha's Table, which are for people who know DC, those are huge charitable organizations and major names in charity in DC. So I'm just kind of interested if you can tell us how was this one person able to impact DC so much at that time?
Well, I did not get the opportunity to meet Dr. Moss. She transitioned obviously some time ago. But from what I understand, as a sociology professor, she brought her students to the district to actually see the poverty and the things on the street that they had been learning in the classes. And she said that while she was on her way back to her car, that this gentleman just sort of passed out in front of her, and she walked over him and continued on. But that evening or that night when she was resting at home, it really resonated with her that she didn't stop to find out what happened, what was wrong with him. Of course, she made a lot of assumptions in her head, as she said, but nevertheless, what she was teaching her students didn't really come real for her until that day. And so she started doing a little bit more digging about what is really happening in the district as far as homelessness and women and men. And she found out that men had a lot of resources at that time, or a lot of shelters that catered to men, but there were not those services for women. And so she embarked on starting House of Ruth first, and she started with 8 unhoused women in a building on Mass Avenue. And it all took off from there. Later on, there were women coming with the children, and they realized they needed services for the children, and that's how Kids Space came into being. Kids Space has been around over 30 some years. And then from there, realizing that housing is one part of it, child development services and other supportive services are great, but women needed to heal from the trauma that they had dealt with. So we have our own counseling center as well that provides counseling to anyone, and that could be a woman or a man that has been a survivor of domestic or intimate partner violence. And so we've just continued to build on that foundation that she laid 46 years ago. And so now, as Lou talked about, what we're seeing is we have the women, we have the children, we're supporting them, and we're finding that once they graduate from our program, is what we call them graduates, and they've done the hard work. There's been a lot of investment. We've helped them get careers and jobs, start their own businesses, earn income, learn how to manage that income, learn how to take care of a household, parent their children, and then we send them out into the world, but there's not a place for them to go that they can afford.
Right.
So that's how the birthing of affordable housing came into play. We said, hey, we've got to get into this. We've got to help our participants continue to be successful. And then another piece of that is we have introduced home ownership. That's something we start very early in our programs with our program participants, as we're talking about money management and how to save and how to build generational wealth for their families. We're saying, hey, you can own a piece of pie, and here's how you do it. So we are grateful to have those persons that have come in and have sat with our women and have taught them how to, move in that arena. And we've had several of our families move directly from us and move into their own homes through some of the first-time home buyers programs. So we're really excited about this whole continuum of housing, is what I call it. Now, everybody may not buy a house, but that's fine. They at least have some information that at some point, if they do get to that point, they know that it's possible for them. And the great thing about that, from where I sit as a social worker, is it means that then we're introducing this concept to children and young adults. And so now we have families that can build on this with generations to come. And we keep people out of this pipeline of being unhoused and homeless. So that's the goal. That's really the big picture goal, that we are able to free up these services for other people that we know need the services, because those that we've already worked with are now independent, can take care of themselves, are living in the community, can be a support to those communities, can be connected to those communities in ways that they may not have never been before.
It's incredible. I'm wondering, because there's so much involved here, and you were just talking about the history. I mean, homelessness, we've been experiencing homelessness in our city forever. And recently it seems to have gotten a lot worse during the pandemic. We see homeless encampments, and I don't know if it's like these are things that were occurring before that we didn't notice as much because the media brings all this stuff to us more quickly, and we're hearing these stories in different blogs and different places. But what do you think is at the core of the problem of homelessness in our city? Maybe you could expound on some other cities, but really we're in DC. Like, what do you think is at the core of this, and what's next? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think you're absolutely right. There certainly have been people that have been unhoused for many years around us, but not to the magnitude that it is now. And I think a lot of it has to do with there's a lot of change in not only the District of Columbia, but there's a lot of change across the country in terms of how we view housing and how we view what happens in cities around housing. So, you've got folks that have been basically moved out of the district or moved out of housing, and housing has become unaffordable for many populations, especially for those populations that we are serving, because these are folks that are sort of getting their legs again, or maybe getting their legs for the first time. And so they're starting at a level where they can't afford the kind of housing that is offered in big cities like the District of Columbia. I'm a Washingtonian. I lived in the city all my life in different areas of the city. And I know my mom did not earn a lot of money, but she was able to find decent housing in the city. That's not the case now, unfortunately. And so, growing up in the city, I lived in a great neighborhood, and there were folks from multi-income levels in those neighborhoods. That's what makes community, and I was able to see doctors and lawyers and, other folks in the community that help other people aspire to be what some things are. But that our community is changing a lot, and you see different pockets, and you see people that may not have as much in certain pockets of the area. And so, we have to change that demographic. The other thing that's happening, of course, is, income level to live in the city. If you're not making a living wage in order to be able to afford to live in the city, that makes it very difficult as to where you can live in a safe place, in a place where there is recreation, where there's good schools for your children, and so forth. That wasn't an issue when I was growing up. I had great community centers in my community and great schools in my community. I mean, I take nothing from the education that I received in the District of Columbia growing up. That's not the case in every community today. And that's some of the issues. Then you've got the mental health issues. There are people that have returned from, serving in the military that have mental health crises, PTSD. All of those things factor into what's happening. The mental health system has changed. That mental health well-being is not readily available to everyone as it should be. And so you have folks that are on the streets, of course, that are dealing with that and not wanting to necessarily be in a shelter situation for fear of their lives for those kinds of reasons. And then you have the women and children that are fleeing domestic violence and not having a real place to go immediately. That's the key about the services we offer. When women are ready to leave those situations, they need to have a place ready, available to them right now, not 2 weeks down the road or a month down the road. And so some women, when we talk to them about why they stayed so long in those situations, and they will tell you, I stayed so long because I had nowhere to go. And I didn't want to create an unhoused situation for my children, my young children being on the street. But those who do have to flee sometimes end up on the street because there's nowhere to go immediately. So that's a big issue. That's a big reason why we're here where we are. And I know that, the mayor is touting affordable housing, but it's not affordable housing for everybody. And I think we have to be clear about that. They're affordable housing for people that earn $80,000 and above. Our folks are not there yet.
Yeah.
So where do they go?
Yeah, that's affordable, but it's still a high barrier of entry.
Absolutely.
And all those things.
Follow-up.
Go ahead, Brent. I'm sorry. No, you go.
I've got a follow-up question to that. I mean, we've had a couple other developers on. I've got a couple developer clients that they're big into, whether it's homeless shelters or DCRA or DCHA housing voucher program, it seems like everybody in the district wants to take care of affordable housing issue until it's in their backyard. So do you guys have any pushback from some of the neighbors, whether it's mostly like your upper Northwest neighborhoods? They're like, yes, it's a great initiative, but let's push it over into Southeast across the river.
Yeah, that is a reality, and Lou's shaking his head because we just looked at a property, looked at a possible land in an area, and we were already told that they're looking for um, tenants that would be earning $80,000 and above, and so we were very disappointed by that. Um, and that's unfortunate because, as I said, I grew up in a community where multiple levels of people live, and it was a great community. And I not understanding what that's really all about. I think what needs to happen is that we need to have a conversation. We need to sit down and talk about, because just because you don't earn $80,000 doesn't make you a bad person or make you a scary person. When you get to know families are family. they're the same people. They want the same things for their children that I want for my children and you want for your children. And it's how do we have community together? I think it's important. And I think something that Lou said is also important. We're making sure that whatever community we're in, that we're going to build a property that is state of the art, that is going to be very welcoming and enmesh with the community, and that's going to look like something I would live in, you would live in. We're not talking about subsidized and something that's low scale or anything like that. This is beautiful, beautiful property that I think really transforms community. So we're doing more than transforming lives. We want to transform communities at the same time.
Yeah, I think you understand the concept of if you are going to find the land or find the property, you're going to have to build something that is where it's not going to be a question to the neighborhood and the environment around it, that this is something of quality. It's going to enhance the community. It's not going to scare people away. I mean, this is all, like Brent was saying, this is the problem. And when there was quite the scuttlebutt about a piece of property on Wisconsin Avenue in DC a few years ago that they wanted to build a new shelter. This was a city-run thing, and it was so convoluted with the leasing of it from the landlord, and they ended up building it nearby, but they built it on city land just because the pushback was so intense. So I know you guys are met with that constantly when you're looking to do these things. So another question I have is, you're talking about women with families who are trying to leave domestic violence. My guess is that this is happening a lot. There's a lot of this happening in our community. Are you always able to provide this kind of space and this care for people? I mean, what is the intake like? It's very, very intense stuff.
Obviously we saw a spike during the pandemic for a number of reasons. But yes, it is constant. It is real, and it is happening more and more for a lot of different reasons. The economy is shifting. That causes more stress on families. When they're stressed and people don't know how to resolve that stress, then you end up in situations with intimate partner and domestic violence. So you talk about the need. One of the things that we do is that we work with a group of agencies that provide similar services like we do. And so if we, for any reason, are unable because of capacity to support those families that are coming, then we will reach out to our sister partner agency to make sure that those families or those individuals are being housed by someone else. So that's how we sort of keep that safety net in place for those individuals. Because we never want to turn down anyone, obviously, and we don't for the most part. But in those situations where we may not be able to take them at that moment, we have a resource that we can certainly turn to.
Diving into that a little deeper, because some of those can be very messy situations. They could be married. It could be very abusive. Do you guys have any third-party vendors for protection and legal, whether they're afraid the guy or the girl are going to come back and like physically harm them with a gun or a knife? And the same thing if they're married, giving them access to attorneys to help them guide them through a divorce?
Absolutely. One of the things that we tout ourselves on is that we don't just provide housing. We provide all of the supportive services that are connected to that. So if they're legal services, we connect them to all of those abilities to get a protection order, and then to the legal people that would help them to navigate through that process as well. All of our buildings are safe and secured, as well as there are no signs on our building, so you would never know that this is a House of Ruth facility. And just like we talked about, even those facilities that we use for our program, they are state of the art. They are well maintained, well done. Our buildings fit into the community like any other building, so you would not know that is a House of Ruth property at all. And we have security services as well to make sure that our women and children are safe. Absolutely.
I have a question for Lou. So how tell us about becoming a board member, though, and how that came about, and what is involved with being a board member. And I mean, obviously, there's a big real estate component to this, so you're using a lot of connections. Just talk a little bit more about like your role and how you got there.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, great question. And with that question, I would also encourage anybody in real estate to consider nonprofit boards, because I think they're an often overlooked player, not just in providing all these services that we just, or Sandra has been talking about, but in acquiring and developing real estate, whether it's for their own headquarters or the services that they provide. And in fact, one of our newer colleagues at TTR Sotheby's is going to be, or is already providing new home buying seminars for some of our clients. So just, think about that. That's kind of a neat little tie-in with real estate. But I know of at least 2 other nonprofit leaders in the city that are looking for their own new, or want to procure their own new space, for their offices. So, there was a lot of tie-in between real estate and the work of these nonprofits that operate in our city. And as far as being a board member, it's not scary. It's not too overwhelming. At times it can be intense. When Sandra and I were going through that acquisition of that one building last year on Minnesota Avenue, boy, that was a lot. But that being said, at the end, when you're successful in an acquisition or a project development, it's just, as I said earlier, it's just incredibly gratifying. We are, as I said also earlier, we are so blessed to be in this business of real estate. It's been so good to us. And there's ways you can help others too through that expertise that you've developed. And there is a big need, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today, was that nonprofits need real estate guidance and advice and assistance, and it really is an important facet of the whole operation of a nonprofit in the city. So as a board member, we meet like every other month, and Sandra and I talk every couple of weeks. We have a regularly scheduled call. A lot of it is being a sounding board. As a board member, you don't. At least my philosophy has never been to meddle in the operations or get too involved like in the day-to-day nitty-gritty, because Sandra is the expert and does what she does, and has a leadership team that are expert at what they do. So our job is really to just sort of oversee, to give advice. There's a lot of different expertises on a board. That's I think the mark of a good board. You get people who have all kinds of different backgrounds, from banking, finance, social work, nonprofits, everything really. So we all come together and collectively, I think, provide a lot of good backup and support and discussions. And sometimes it's not all like honky dory. Sometimes there's conflict, sometimes there's issues, sometimes people object, or they don't go along with something that's been proposed. But that's like any board. You talk it out, you negotiate, you work through things. We have a really good board, I think. Everybody comes together. People question things, certainly, and they certainly kind of question them strongly sometimes. But we all come together for the common goal, which is to pursue the mission of the House of Ruth. And I think it works really well. when you have so many people coming together with different backgrounds, and real estate is just one of them. And again, I just encourage people to think about different nonprofits and how you can get involved, and it's really not too demanding. You just you do it when you can, and there's always time to make the time in the day to over the weekend or whenever to help out, right? And so I think it's just really important for us all to think about.
100%. What's the biggest challenge in raising awareness for the issues of domestic violence and unhoused individuals? What's your challenge with that?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for us is always getting the word out. I mean, opportunities like this is fantastic. I mean, we can talk amongst our constituents, and they know the problem, but getting the word out to the bigger public, and of course, it costs to get on TV, it costs to do ads, it costs to do a lot of these things. So we depend a lot on smaller newspapers. We depend a lot on advocacy groups that can get our word out. If we had, it'd be great to have a larger platform, and those are some of the things that we are looking at, and maybe our groups are talking about how we partner together to get some of those bigger awareness kinds of opportunities that we can do that we may have to put some money to. But that's the biggest thing, to get the word out, to get this conversation on in the media. We, of course, there's a lot more talk now. You're hearing a lot more about it because it is such a huge issue across the nation. You're hearing a lot more about mental health because a lot of the celebrities are now talking about it. So it's now become a little bit more open conversation. This was a conversation that people weren't talking about at some point. So we do a lot of advocacy work in the community. We go to a lot of the churches and community groups when we're invited to talk about what we do and how to help people, how to recognize when you see some things going on. Those are great opportunities, but it's got to continue to be a bigger conversation that this is real, this is happening, and we all play a part in how we do something about that.
Brent, did you want to go?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to that. So the House of Ruth, can you tell us, is it just DC based, or is it spread across the country, and are the same services across the country?
So this House of Ruth, there are houses of Ruth across the country. We're not connected, and each one provides different services. So we are House of Ruth in the District of Columbia. So there's different services. There's a House of Ruth in Maryland and other parts of the country as well. I've tried to connect us. That's been a little harder to do. And obviously different areas do different things, but I saw that as a great way to really bring awareness to what we do across the nation. But we're not connected. So I think that's the misnomer that people think, because sometimes I get calls from people and say, I'm in California, can you help me? And I say, well, let me connect you to someone in that area. But no, we're not connected.
So I guess the ultimate mission of an organization like yours would be to for anyone to never need your organization, right? That you would never have such an issue like this where people are in need of housing, or they need all of this support, but this problem seems to only grow every year, and it's like the need for this is more and more. So my question is very broad, and I want to ask you, Sandra and Lou, because you're dealing with this, like you're working on this, and Sandra, this is what you do, this is your life. What is the big answer? Why can we never figure it out as a society, that these kinds of issues just continue to get worse exponentially? And the more we attempt to like slow these things down, like they keep popping up. It's a little disheartening that in society we're still dealing with things like this, but even at a higher rate. So I just want your take on that. I want to know what you feel about that.
Well, I think it goes to what we prioritize. And unfortunately, I'm talking about prioritize with finances and funding. Human services is the area that, we're dealing with this right now in the District of Columbia, that we are looking at perhaps a major cut based on the mayor's budget that is being reviewed as we speak. So we deal with this. I think we have to look at where we prioritize funding. And this is something that nonprofits have been dealing with for many, many years, which is why, at House of Ruth and many other nonprofits, we have to raise our own money. And we've been around 46 years. We have some great donors who support us because there's no way we can do this on contractual money or monies from the government. But that is something we've been seeing that has not been consistent funding for many years. So those safety nets that were around, for many years are no longer around. Or, and some organizations are not as fortunate as the House of Ruth that's been around as long as we have to be able to build that capacity to fund the services that we know are important to children and families. So that's a big problem. When those safety nets are gone, then where do folks go? And what happens to them? That's a major concern. And again, as I say, prioritizing. What are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing families? Are we who are the staples of our community? Just like teachers and nurses and all of those folks that really provide that safety net. And unfortunately, over years, that has not been what we prioritize, and we're seeing the outgrowth of that in the social issue. But I want to step a little bit to this point, and that is what I think we have to do, and what I know we are doing at House of Ruth, and that is we have to be on both fronts. We can provide the services, when families do find themselves in these situations, but what about the preventive end of that? And the preventive end of that is before families get there. What are we teaching our young people about how to resolve disputes and how to resolve, issues in families, and how do they resolve, and we see the outgrowth of that on the streets with the teens today and how they're resolving issues. So we got to go back. We've got to go back and do the work at the beginning. What we're focusing on is what I call downstream services. Okay, we're creating the services and there's a great story. I learned this in social work school, and I'll just tell you quickly about the baby that comes down the river. You may have heard that, and they pluck the baby out the river, one out the river. Then there's two more that comes, and three more, and they're just coming. So now they've created all of these supportive services downstream for the baby. But somebody says one day, look, we need to go upstream.
Where's the baby coming from?
Where's the baby coming from? Why are these babies in the river?
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to do. We got to go upstream and get those services in place upstream.
Yeah.
To curtail what's coming downstream. Now, there are going to be some that are going to come, but they are flooding downstream now. So we got to go upstream and do some work. And we do some of that in our counseling program, where we're going into the community and we're going into the community centers where the young people are, and we're talking to them about relationships and what does a healthy relationship look like, so that they have some understanding of that. How do young men actually treat a young woman, and vice versa? Because it happens on both sides.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations we have to have.
And Sandra, some of this is happening at Kids Space too, with the children, right?
Some of this, absolutely. You're right, Lou. Thank you. As some of this is happening at Kids Space, we are doing a multi-generational therapy at our Kids Space program. So not only are we working with the mom, the child, we're working with grandma, we're working with uncle, whoever is connected to that child, so that everybody is getting the supportive services that they need. And one of the moms said recently, as she was participating, she said, I know now why I haven't been able to give my child what I need to give my child, because I didn't get that as a child myself. So we got to cut this generational stuff off that we see that is happening over and over and over again, and change the trajectory of where our children are going. Because as a social worker, having been in this field for 30 years and working in child welfare, I saw mom, and then I saw the daughter come back and granddaughter come back, and we got to stop that. But the only way you stop that is you go upstream,
right,
and do the upstream work as well.
Lou, what's your take?
Yeah, I see that, and the proof's in the pudding. We get uh, firsthand accounts from some of our clients, and you guys, when you hear their stories, it's just so inspiring, and you just get blown away, because their success stories, and people have come through the House of Ruth programs. There's one that's going to be performing. In fact, he's got his own band, right, Sandra, and he was a child in one of our programs. And these kids who, never had any structure or discipline or support in their lives are now, getting that at a place like Kids Space. I mean, it's just, again, it's just really inspiring when you see the results. And we have one person who graduated from the program on our board, and it's, getting her viewpoint and her input on matters is critically important. So, when you see the successes that the House of Ruth has been able to achieve, I mean, that just, it makes you understand why we do this work. And one of the things I also wanted to kind of segue to is, because you asked, like, why are we here? And, just raising awareness, raising that thought about how you can contribute, whether it's by your expertise, by your, financial resources, as I say, the rising tide lifts all ships. I mean, this is in our community, right? This is where we live and where we, your kids go to school and where you're operating your business and all of that. And you want you want it to be a good community in which to live and prosper. And that all of us want that, right? So it's got to be for all parts of our society. And, Sandra's done a really good job. I mean, grant writing and all this fundraising and capital campaign, all that part is really important too, right? Because a few years ago, we got a big grant. I think it was 2.2 million, was it, from the Day One Fund?
That's right.
Yeah, and that was Jeff Bezos who came in and said, okay, we're doing this Amazon too, but we're going to give back to the community a little bit. And we know that's part of the deal, and we want to help, build a good community as well. So we were very fortunate to have received that, and that really helped us with the last big capital campaign. And then Sandra's been working very closely with Eleanor Holmes Norton's office on another appropriation, which is coming through the federal government, but down through the district. So all these things are really important. And so the more people that are aware that this is an effort that's going on, it's an important one, it's a challenging one, because there's a lot of need, as we all know. There's a lot of nonprofits doing good work in our city, and a lot of people vying for the same pot of funds. But when the city sees how successful House of Ruth has been at doing this for so many years, and knows that the money is going to be well spent, it's not going to be wasted, it's going to be going toward all the same goals that the city has for its residents, that's when we start being successful in obtaining some of those funds. And it's just an important thing to be aware of, and to think about ways you can support and be behind all these efforts.
Sandra, I just want to say one more thing after what you said, which was really powerful. But I think that, I mean, for what House of Ruth is doing, I mean, that's about, I think that's the best we can do. Is you are the upstream now, like you have to create these opportunities for the young people who are coming into like your spaces, and so that they can, I guess, to like unlearn all of the issues that were in the previous generations, so that they can know what it's like to be in that healthy community. Because there are some things that unfortunately just seem to be a little bit, outside of our control. We can't bring them all in. So what you guys are doing is literally the best thing possible. I mean, really is.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Brent, did you have anything else for this?
No, I think to both of you guys, Sandra and Lou, I love your passion. My mom was a social worker for 40 years, so I get that same, caring, wanting to help other people from her as well. But I love your all's passion. It's such a great and worthy cause. And, I think Max said it great in his last little bit there.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Yes, thank you.
Sandra and I can get pretty passionate sometimes, to the point where I want Sandra to talk at any time I have a get together about House of Ruth. I want her to speak, because she's so eloquent, and people just look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, what just happened? That was so inspiring. I want to help. What can I do? How can I help? How much can I give?"
No, it's powerful.
We love that.
That's a great lead into we'll do rapid fire, but that's a great lead in. I mean, do you want to share with our listeners how they can help, how they can get involved?
Well, there, of course, as Lou said, we have volunteer opportunities. A lot of people call and say, hey, like they'll hear something and say, what can I do? How can I help? There are a lot of volunteer opportunities. You can go to our website, which is houseofruth.org, of course, DC. And there's a volunteer tag there, and someone will be in touch with you about that. Oftentimes, we have a Amazon wish list of things that we need that helps us. If folks can purchase those things, Amazon will then ship them directly to us. That's a great way. We do that also during the holiday season when we're getting toys and all of those kinds of things for our family. But even during the year, we put those things on the list, and that's the way to help us. Of course, donations of any kind. We'll accept any kind, any amount of donations as well. And then, just if folks have ideas or partnerships that they're interested in, we get a lot of calls and a lot of inquiries about how can we partner with House of Ruth. We're on a mission to really get work with corporations, and so we're getting some calls now about how corporations can get involved with their people. We've got folks that do landscaping for us, just projects. Want to build a garden, with our participants. We have retired teachers that are teaching homework, doing homework projects with our kids in the evening. So there's multiple ways to get involved. Someone just did a crocheting class and a knitting class, and another group came in and took professional photos of our women, so they'll have those as they go forward in their job searches. Outfitting them with outfits for their interviews, doing interview skills with them, helping them with resume writing. The list goes on. The list goes on.
Right. One of our board members was doing meals, and you can send meals or cook meals, right? That's all at one of our programs. So there's really almost anything and everything you can pick.
Anything and everything. That's right. And that helps us because those are funds that we don't have to spend, and we can use those funds to really supplement the services that we provide. And I'm telling you, we provide everything. I mean, some really out of the box kind of things that we do because families need everything. And, and it's not cookie cutter. One family might need this, another family might need that. If there are classes that kids need that will help them move forward in some way, we're making sure those things are happening. In our Kids Space program, we do physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, the multi-generational therapy that we do. I mean, whatever they need, we want to make sure when those kids leave Kids Space, they are ready for school and they are able to compete on a level as far as their development is concerned. Because unfortunately, sometimes they come to us, they're not at their level that they need to be. It's not because there's anything physically wrong, it's because they haven't been nurtured in the way that they need to be. So we take that time to make sure they get everything they need to bring them up to the level based on their developmental needs.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. The stuff that you guys do is absolutely it's amazing. It's like there needs to be more of this, but like I said, I wish there wasn't a need for more of this, but you guys are doing the best work and you're doing it really well. And thank you for sharing everything with us today and like changing it up for us too. We need to talk about these things. We're always talking about how we're donating to charities, but you guys are like really working on it. Sandra, you're like on the front line with this kind of stuff and really putting these things together. And you're giving it your life, and we thank you for that. It's really incredible.
Wow.
If I can say one thing before we leave,
sure.
Lou alluded to a young man. I just did the interview with him on Saturday. He is with the War and Treaty, which is a very well-known band that's out there. And that young man was in our program at 12. Of course, he's a father now, husband, and so forth. He did an amazing interview with us and talked about how House of Ruth really saved his life. And so that's what we're here to do. We're changing the world. And if we can do it one person at a time, one family at a time, that's what we're doing. At least we know that family will go on, and that child will go on and do some amazing things. So now he's on a world tour, he and his wife and his band.
Wow.
And they are changing the world. But and we talk about hope starting here. Guess what? He's taking that hope and he's taking it around the world. So we're just So proud. And he's one of many. He's one of many. We've been here, House of Ruth has been around 46 years. We calculated that we have served somewhere in the neighborhood of 17,000 women, children, and families over that period of time. And so some come back and we know their stories, some don't, but it's okay. What we do know is they are better.
Yeah.
They are better today because of House of Ruth.
Thank you for ending that on an uplifting, wonderful message, though. That's amazing that he's on a world tour. I mean, that's incredible.
It's a great story.
Look them up, War and Treaty.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. I can't stop smiling. And we'll invite you guys to the grand opening of the new building when it goes.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, thank you.
That's not too far from my house.
Okay, good stuff. Excellent.
I really just thank you again for coming on and doing this. And thank you for your time, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet everybody.
Bye.
Nice to meet you too.
Wonderful.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.